You know, it's been a while since we've actually talked about the NHL prospects. And I don't mean prospects that already belong to NHL teams, but the ones that we will be seeing get their names drafted onto the NHL stage, or maybe that's going to be a Zoom call. I'm not really too sure about that once it comes, but the NHL Draft is going to be sometime in October, I believe, and this is a little update on some of the guys that will be eligible for that draft. In particular, we're talking today about the European guys, the guys who are not playing in the OHL, they're not on the NTDP, they're not in the NCAA, nor are they in the WHL. These are players that are either going to start the season out in Europe, or who are in North America now that people are saying could go to Europe to start off the next season of play, since the NHL isn't really supposed to start until November or December, which could be seen as a little bit of an obstacle because some teams in Europe are going to start playing as early as September or October. Let's go over onto the Twitter feed of, and forgive me in advance, Szymon Zememberg. Yeah, that name has 4 consonants in a row. I am not going to be able to pronounce that correctly, but he is a managing director of the Alliance of European Hockey Clubs. He's an IIHF guy, he's written books about the IIHF, and his Twitter feed has a few updates as to the NHL prospects that are most likely going to be European players. It's already confirmed that a player who has a contract with his European team over 2020-2021 and who will be selected in the NHL Draft in October cannot play in the NHL in 2020-2021. This is relevant for guys like Lucas Raymond with the Frölunda Hockey Club and Alexander Holtz with the Djürgardens Hockey Club. Furthermore, he expands on this a little bit more. If a drafted player does not have a contract for a European team in 2020-2021, such player can miss the contract extension talk and play in the NHL immediately in 2020-2021. Okay, so why did we talk about that? Why is this important in my mind? Well, it's because some of these European players, like the ones mentioned, Raymond and Holtz, are probably going to be drafted to teams that, let's say, will probably want to use their services immediately. These guys are supposed to be top NHL drafted prospects. And when you take a look at the guys who are up there in the draft, you take a look at Detroit, you take a look at Ottawa, you take a look at the Los Angeles Kings and the Sabres and the Devils, these are all teams that, if they got some brand new, maybe NHL ready prospects who have already developed and matured in Europe, they may want to use these players right away. But some of them may not actually be available to do so. However, we also have an interesting point over here from Zememberg's Twitter account. Here's an interesting note. A player with an NHL contract for 2020-2021 can play with a European team until the NHL's 2020-2021 training camps open on November 17, provided there is a loan agreement with the contract he signs with his NHL team. The loan can be extended, or it can cover the entire season if the teams both agree. However, this situation should not be confused with a lockout, but the practical outcome may be similar, provided that the NHL club and the European club agree either on lending the player out until the November 17th training camp deadline, or for the entirety of the 2020-2021 season. So that's a boatload of information, but what exactly does that mean? It pretty much means that if a player is out here, he signs a contract with his European team, it's ultimately up to the European team as to whether or not that player is going to be able to leave and go to the NHL right away. This conversation was held between Patrick Bexell and Zememberg. The question asks about Tim Stützle, and it says that Stützle and his Mannheim contract, which even coach Pavel Goss said that he did not think that an NHL team would want him to play in Germany for next season, does a mutual termination of a contract work? And does that solve the situation? Zememberg says, yes, if both parties agree, the player and the European team agree, okay, we can lend you out, we'll terminate the contract, you can go, then that's fair game. It's just, if the team comes out here and says, no, we don't want to terminate the contract, you're playing with us for another year, buddy, then the player's probably got no choice but to uphold that. So depending on whether it's Buffalo or New Jersey or the Ottawa Senators who want to bring over a Lucas Raymond but they can't because hypothetically the Frölunda Hockey Club says, no, we want you down here Lafrenière for another year, then you're just darn out of luck. It's different with Stützle because, according to the coach, they actually said that they don't think that whichever team drafts Stützle would want him to play in Germany again next season, but it is interesting to note that the seasons are projected to starting earlier than the NHL seasons too. This is the whole idea that people have been talking about. Oh, what if Alexia Lafrenière, instead of going back and waiting for the CHL to start up later in 2020, he can just go to Europe and start out in September or October and play hockey there, raise his draft stock a little bit, and then come to the NHL for 2020-2021 for December start. And that's not a bad plan. It's just whichever team would be signing an Alexia Lafrenière or maybe a Marco Rossi, because he's an Austrian guy who could very well go to Europe as well, they're going to need to be able to lay down those terms. Okay, we expect you to be drafted in the NHL, and we expect you to probably make your NHL team once the November 17th training camp for the NHL teams comes around. Now, if you wanted a little bit more information on all this stuff, Lucas Raymond actually signed a 2-year contract extension with the Frölunda Hockey Club just under a year ago. So that's going to take him until the end of 2021, meaning that the Frölunda Hockey Club ultimately has the ball here. It's their ball game. If they want to keep Raymond on for the last season's worth of play that is under his contract, Raymond's got no choice. If you want to talk about other European guys, let's talk about Anton Lundell. He's in a similar situation because he's a guy who, in May of 2018, signed a 3-year contract extension with the HIFK Hockey Club in the Finnish Liga, meaning that he's also going until the end of 2020-2021, so we could realistically see Lundell actually not be allowed to go if the team that holds him does not allow him to leave. This is important to me because some of these players are players that many would have thought, he maybe would have been able to make the NHL right away. Lucas Raymond has already played pro hockey for quite a long time, Lundell has played for even longer, not to mention Marco Rossi is a guy who is so mature and so capable already that these could potentially be guys who step into the NHL right away. And the fact that this whole virus thing has stopped everything, it's put a very big monkey wrench into the system. Let's take a look at this article over here on hockeynews.se, written by Alexander Nilsson. He writes about how the NHL system would normally be. This is how it normally goes down. NHL teams will have 3 days to sign contracts with European players who already have contracts with other European teams. June 15, July 15, and August 15. After August 15, an NHL team will not be allowed to sign a European player provided he is under contract. The thing is, the NHL already confirmed that they are not pushing these dates back, because normally, the draft would have been done in June. These contracts with the European players would have already been signed either on July 15 or August 15, and we would have seen a Lucas Raymond either come over to the NHL or the AHL or get loaned back over to the Frölunda Hockey Club. Now that the draft is after these 3 dates, wherein European players are allowed to sign with NHL teams even if they have European contracts still, there's no room for that to happen anymore. And now the only way we'll see a Lucas Raymond with Erasmus Dahlin on a power play 1 after being selected by the Buffalo Sabres 8th overall is if the Frölunda Hockey Club says yes, okay, we'll agree to terminate the contract, and if Raymond actually does so as well. So that's our video here on NHL prospects. The ones who are already in Europe are probably the ones with a lot more uncertainty tied towards their names, aside from Tim Stützle, because there was already an expectation that he would be NHL ready right away, and even the German guys over there in the Adler Mannheim said so too. But when it comes to guys like Rossi or Lafrenière or any of these other prospects who may be going to Europe just to get some playing time, there probably needs to be some established agreement that a mutual contract termination will probably need to be done, let's just say a month or 2 after the season starts, because they want to go to the NHL. So if you were looking for Raymond to play in the NHL next season, you may be disappointed, but on the other hand, if you were saying, you know what, Holtz is great, but I don't want to expose him to this Ottawa Senators team right now, let's draft the guy, and then we'll play him again in the SHL, wait for him to become an absolute beast, and then come over to the NHL like Elias Pettersson did, then that option certainly presents itself as much more plausible too as well. So talk to me in the comments below how you think this will affect the European talents. I hope you enjoyed this video. And bye.